beginning of the year, there's a lot of opportunities for kids to, introduce themselves to others and get to know a lot of people. So it's really fun kind of at the beginning to meet all of those people, and everybody's always super nice, and it's a really fun time.
That's awesome. Thank you, Noah. Does anybody else want to jump in and add sort of just a general overview of their experience as a boarder at St. J and things that you really have enjoyed about your time?
One
Yeah,
thing. Oh,
you go.
Go ahead, Ellie. We'll go Mike
okay.
next.
One thing I really love about the academy is there's a difference. Well, there's like the whole community as a whole with day students and boarding students. It's a separate thing from just boarding students, which you can get the environment of both combined and also your own environment of boarding students, which is kind of unique to the academy. And you don't really get a lot of that to offer in other places.
That's great. Thank you. Michael, what were you going to add?
I was gonna say, I am also from Vermont, similar to Noah, but it's a very small town from where I'm from. So going to the academy was a very big change, not only culturally, but just the atmosphere was very different. But my friends, not only dorm students, but day students as well, helped me become a part of the community and really invited me in very quickly. Like the first 2 weeks, I knew where everything was. I knew I had a whole group of friends already, and the academy really just provides a sense of community that some people would not get, without it. It's just the community there is what really attracted me the most.
That's
Especially.
great. Thank you, Michael. Kayla or Carrie, can one of you guys talk a little bit about our orientation process? How do students get oriented to St. Johnsbury Academy, and what is the orientation process like? We'll start with Kayla, and then we'll jump in if Carrie has to add anything.
Sure. So our boarding orientation is 3 days long. It's a little bit tiring, but it's really fun. The dorm council and student ambassadors, they take you on a trip to a ropes course where you get to really meet a lot of new people and learn a lot about the school. You get to learn the school song, and it's a great bonding experience. You meet so many people. They take you on a shopping trip so you can get some of your new supplies. And when you get back to the school, you do a big formal dinner with some of the people that you've met over your weekend and a lot of the returning students coming back. And it's a really great experience.
Awesome. Carrie, and if you want to add something as one of the two international students that are on this call, and we can let Carolina jump in too if she wants. Carrie, how was it for you sort of fitting into a new culture and getting into, coming to the US and jumping into school here as opposed to being in your home country? Oh, sorry, you're muted again. Sorry, hold on one second.
Yeah, so I came here the second semester of my freshman year, so unlike most of the people. So it was, I thought it would be tough for me to jump in, but with the orientation program, I first got to meet a lot of people from different countries, and we can talk a lot during the games, and it was very easy to get to know each other through the help of other school ambassadors and also dorm councils. And also inside the dorm, our proctor connects us together, like through, for example, we have activities on Sundays, and we have dorm meetings where the students, especially dorm international students, they can exchange their opinions, talk, and play games. So that's how I really immerse into the community.
That's awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Carolina, how about you as another international student? How did you find it was sort of acclimating yourself to St. J?
I think it was very fun to, go to a different place, and the cultural difference was kind of big because I've never seen, that big of cars and the roads and everything just seemed bigger. So I'd say that it hit me definitely from the start when we arrived, and also people the people were more open and different, and especially since you come into a community where there's a lot of Europeans but also Americans, also a lot of Asians and Latino Americans and everything, so it's all like combined, and to see you can relate to different things with different people, and it's just very interesting because like it gets like you get to know yourself more from like a different aspect, if that makes sense.
That's perfect. Thank you. We have a couple questions that came in. I think the first one was sort of answered within that first round of conversation, talking about the boarding students and the day students interacting prior to the start of school. So I'll just sort of give the short answer to that. Some of the day students are part of the boarding student orientation, and the day student leaders help the new boarding students get oriented to St. Johnsbury. But maybe if you guys want to take a little while to talk about the interaction just in general between boarders and day students. I know a lot of people get nervous that it's a very separate community, and obviously you as boarders have your dorm community, but talk about how it's been maybe in sports or in clubs or in classes, integrating with the day population. Anybody who wants to can jump in.
I think I mentioned briefly, but I think it's a really unique experience to have both communities and then also have it together, like in school and in sports. And I think sports is one way that I was really able to meet a lot of new day students in addition to boarding students that I had already met. But also in your classes, it's really, and in your advisories, which I'm sure we'll talk about, it's a really great way to meet people from all over, whether it's day students from out of state or I think it's a really unique experience.
It's great. Anybody else have anything to add about the day student relationships?
I mean,
Okay.
I just
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you got it.
okay. When I first came to the academy, I actually showed up 2 weeks early for a football preseason, and it was kind of intimidating at first because, you know, there's a bunch of athletes who have been a part of the team for years already, and then there's, you know, 20 or so other kids who maybe have never even played football. So to see everyone come together and help each other out was, you know, really cool. I don't know, especially seeing how a lot of the kids who had already been there already had their established friend groups, but they were still all so willing to help out with the new boarders, and, you know,
Yeah.
it was a smoother transition than I could have anticipated.
That's great. Michael, do you have anything to add to that? I know you sound like you wanted to jump in.
No, I think him and Ellie pretty much covered it. The sense of the two communities coming together and inviting each other in is really the main aspect.
That's great. And so just so everyone is aware of the sort of language that these guys are using, so Noah mentioned 2 weeks, arriving 2 weeks early in the fall for a preseason. What he's talking about is if you are an athlete who wants to play a fall sport, so one of our sports that starts in August, you would arrive on campus 2 weeks earlier than everybody else. So even if you're a new student, you still arrive 2 weeks earlier. So if you want to play American football, soccer, cross country, field hockey, and I'm sure I'm missing maybe a couple, but volleyball, thank you, and cheerleading. If you want to do any of those, you would arrive 2 weeks early, and that's a great way to sort of get into a groove socially with your peers. Another question that came in was about relationships with proctors. Let's talk with Forrester. Tell us about your relationships with your proctors and what sort of role they've played in your time at St. Johnsbury.
Personally, a few of my proctors are my teachers, and that's happened both the years that I've been at the academy. So if you're that lucky, it's really nice because they can help you with classes and stuff, but all around, proctors just play more of a leadership role really as a dorm student because they make sure you're doing your work, but they're also just, most of them are really nice all around, and they're just really helpful people.
That's great. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I've been in the same dorm the past almost 3 years that I've been at the school. So the proctors that I've had, you know, they've watched me from my sophomore year up to my senior year, and they're always looking out for you. They always want the best for you. They really will do everything they can to help. And I think that the bond that you make with your proctors, you know, over time, it really strengthens. And I can definitely say that my proctors are some of the most important people that I've met at the academy.
That's awesome. You might have seen me smirking and smiling a little bit, and that's because We now have not only one alumni on this call. Kazuma is on the call, but also, hi Kazuma. I don't know if you can sit here. I'll unmute you right now. Hi, so Kazuma graduated a couple years ago from St. Johnsbury. His brother is on with him because he's coming to join us. So Kazuma, I'll let you talk in just a second about your experience. I think I unmuted you, but I also want to introduce Jakob, who also came on the call. I'm going to unmute you. So Jakob is there with his sister, and they have siblings that they've now convinced that St. Johnsbury Academy is the place for them as well, and they're going to join us. So really quickly, I'm not going to put you guys on the spot too much, but let's start with Kazuma, and why don't you tell us a little bit as an alum about your experience at St. Johnsbury?
Oh yeah, I'm now studying at Japanese University, and this is my second year in Japan, Japanese University. But what's really different from other Japanese students at university and me is if I have experienced the life in international society, and it's the experience I had in St. Johnsbury gave me gratitude to my parents and openness to other people who I don't know. So I became really extroverted and open and sociable after I graduated St. Johnsbury. Yeah, so it was really a nice experience for me to grow up as a human and to be better man.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I completely 100% put him on the spot. He had no idea I was going to ask him to talk. So Kazuma, thank you so much. That was awesome. I'm going to mute you guys again so you can feel free to talk about how uncomfortable that was for you. But you you were awesome and it was perfect. So thank you so much for doing that. Jakob, hi. It's great to see you.
Hi.
Why don't you chime in a little bit as well about your time? You're a more recent grad. You were with us last year,
Yes.
and you did 1 year with us. Is that right?
Yeah, no, I did 3.
Excuse me. Sorry, that's my fault. He was there long before I was. So Jakob, go ahead and give a little bit of your experience about St. J.
Well, I absolutely loved it. It was amazing for me. I came as a sophomore, and I was only supposed to stay for only 1 year. But after about 2 months, I realized that this is the place where I wanted to stay. This is the place where I wanted to be. So I decided to stay there, and I stayed until I graduated last year. And it was absolutely amazing. Right now I have friends all over the world. I just talked to some of them the other day about the whole situation, and it is just great to like catch up with them. And I never thought at any point in my life that I would be able to talk to people all around the world and call them my friends. And this is one of the things the Academy made possible for me. And I just talked to my proctors recently as well. And we are good friends at this point. And I'm going to be honest, I miss it every single day. If I could go back right now, I would immediately.
Thank you. That's so awesome. And just so you know, we miss you too. We miss both of you. And as you were talking, the reason that I said where you were with us for 1 year was because I remember now that the original plan was for you to just stay for 1 year.
Yes.
And then you decided that you loved it so much that you stayed for an additional 2 and graduated with us. So that worked out nicely that I had forgotten that detail, and then and that makes it awesome. So thank you so much. I may come back to either one of you two as alums just for your input, and I'll unmute you if I want to ask you a question. But let's get back to the ambassadors. So ambassadors, let's talk a little bit about daily schedule outside of the school day first. So we'll talk about the school day in a minute. But let's, someone asked a question about sort of free time outside of school, what to do in your downtime and time off, and how much free time that you have. So who would like to jump in with that? Let's go. Actually, I'm going to put someone on the spot. Let's go with Michael. What do you do for fun outside of school?
So outside of school, we obviously have our sports practices, which tend to be in the fall, at least right after school, um, where you have a lot of, social interactions with your friends and peers there. And after, but if you're not playing a sport, then we also have clubs and activities at the school, which you can pick. And I think those last few weeks, I'm not sure how many exactly, but and other than that, we have a lot of restaurants and fun places to go around town. Like we have a bowling alley, which is very popular as well, and just a lot of restaurants and cafes that we like to go to. But we tend to stick with our friends mainly. We have a lot of, obviously, the common rooms in the dorms. Each dorm has a common room, which is a designated spot, an open spot with couches or lounge, things, where we can just relax and hang out as friends. But we also can go downtown and hang out there and go possibly shopping. There are a few stores as well. But yeah, it's mainly you're never really find yourself alone at the academy. You'll always have somebody or some people to be with for sure.
That's awesome. And maybe Noah, why don't you jump in and talk a little bit about sort of like the structure of free time and what it's like, not necessarily even just as an athlete, but just as a boarder in general. So from the time your last class ends on a weekday, what is it like for you as a boarder? What does that look like in the afternoon?
So there are a few different school schedule, like daily schedules, depending on the day of the week. There's a different schedule on Monday, and then Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. We might elaborate more on that later. But typically school ends around 3 o'clock, and then you would either go to sports practice or your club, which can range from 45 minutes to 2.5 hours, depending on what activity you're into. And then dinner will be from 5 to 6:30 in the fall. It stays open a little later because of athletes. And then study hall starts at 7:30. So there's a designated time for all boarding students where they're required to either be studying in their dorm, in the library, or guided study with a teacher. And that's from 7:30 to 9. And then from 9 to 10 on a school day, the gym is open. So you can either be in the gym socializing, working out, or stay in your dorm. And then from 10 to 10:45, it's just kind of quiet hours. You have to be in your dorm, but you don't necessarily have to be like in your room in bed yet. And then lights out, they kind of expect people to be kind of settling down and getting ready to sleep for the next day around 10:45. And then on weekends, Friday, if you're not playing a sport, then you're free basically from the end of school at 3 o'clock until, if you're an underclassman, then 11 o'clock. If you're an upperclassman, then 12 o'clock. You have to check in at dinner at some point just to, so your proctors know that you're around at some point from 5 to 6:30. On Saturday, same deal, just dinner check-in, same curfews. And then on Sunday, we have study hall from 7:30 to 9 again.
Awesome.
And could I add something to Noah? Can I add something?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, cool. So it does sound very, structured, and there are a lot of times and stuff to follow. But once you get into the hang of it, it has its own flow to it, and it seems, just natural the way you do it. You don't even start to think about it. So don't let that scare you. It did scare me at first as well, but the schedule, there's a purpose to it. It keeps you, out of trouble sometimes. But there is the flow to it, and everything has a reason. But you'll get used to that very quickly. And if you have any questions about that as well, there's always people around to ask, and there's always schedules just hanging up some places. There's always people and support systems to ask for.
Can I also add something? So
Yes,
I want to talk about like weekend activities, because I know like I usually go. So there's always there's this place called Res Life, where you will have like your mailbox and like dorm students can hang out in there and just like between classes if you have a free block. And also there will always be like a hang up sheet where Miss Fenoff, the lady that works there, will like write down what's for weekend activities. So it's if it's Walmart trip, or if we're going to like I don't know, sometimes you go to, I know that there was one trip to Hanover, then Burlington. So everything that like you can do on the weekend and the time that you can do it is written on there, and then you can sign up with her for those trips. So those are also like some things that you can do that are kind of like out of that schedule, and it just kind of, yeah, you can decide whenever you want to do. And sometimes we even go to like restaurants, like hibachi restaurants or teppanyaki. So yeah.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you. We have a couple questions that have been asked as you guys were talking. One of them is, when and where do students have time to study? I know that Noah mentioned something about the study hall, evening study hall, so you can touch on that a little bit more. But the other question, the follow-up is there a specific amount of homework that is assigned? And what if you need extra time to study or complete work? So maybe Kayla, do you want to jump in on that? When and where do students have time to study, and talk a little bit about the homework load?
So I know that there is an early study hall program that students can participate in, and that takes place in the library from I think 3:45 to 5:15. And in the library, there are always teachers or librarians who can help you with any sort of research or topic matter. And during evening study hall from 7:30 to 9 o'clock, there will always be a teacher there to help you. You can study in the library, you can study in your dorm, anywhere in the dorm, you can study in the common room, in your basement, in your bedroom, whatever works for you. But I personally, the school has been really accommodating for me because I'm not very productive at night, so I like to get my homework done right after school. So I've been given permission to go to the library and get my work done. And all of my teachers are really supportive with that. They all have a time period after school called conference period where they're available to answer any questions or help you with your homework. And in terms of workload, I've never been too overwhelmed with any of my homework. Each class gives you between 30 minutes to an hour. It really depends on your teacher and the class. But like I said, all of your teachers are really understanding, and if you're feeling overwhelmed with any of the work, they will work with you to make sure that you're getting your work done well. But yeah, I'd say it's pretty manageable.
That's perfect. And another thing is that all freshmen and sophomore students will have a designated study hall during the academic day as well. So for you freshmen and sophomores who are coming to us, you will have at least, about 3 hours a day of dedicated study hall time for you to complete all of that homework. So it's really more than, and that's outside of anything that you're doing on your own outside of those times. So that's, there's plenty of time designated for you to do your homework during the school day. And actually, while we're talking about the school day and workload, let's talk about a typical academic day. So maybe Ellie, do you want to jump in and talk about our 5-block schedule and what your day looks like during the academic day?
Sure. So every morning there's this thing called chapel. Do you want me to do this too?
Yes, go right.
Okay.
Yeah, please explain chapel.
So there's this thing called chapel, and we have 2 separate ones. There's one for freshmen and then one for sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And the reason for that is because freshmen coming into the academy it's kind of a unique experience for them coming to high school for the first time. Not saying that there aren't also new students from other grades, but freshman chapel it's a smaller environment, and it's only with their dean and then their advisories and their advisors, which is kind of different, but same idea as normal chapel, which in the morning starts at 8 o'clock. Yeah, 8 o'clock. And it usually lasts however long. It's kind of a general 20, half an hour, 20 minutes period in the morning. And you sit with your advisory, which is a group of students from your grade, and you have an advisor, and you sit in a designated seat every morning, and the headmaster or whoever is doing announcements or sort of the general morning meeting in the morning comes on stage. And sometimes we have live acts, which is like whoever wants to perform or people speaking about upcoming trips or opportunities. It's kind of just a general assembly in the morning. And then after chapel, you go to your A block, and we have a block schedule which goes A, B, C, D, and then E. And you get to set up your schedule. They try to keep it as evenly spaced as possible, so you don't have really rigorous academic classes like 3 times in a row. They try to put electives in between those, and it's kind of just, you get into a routine eventually, and that's pretty much the general schedule of the day.
That's great. Something that Ellie talked about that I want to sort of add in about. She's talking about the sort of balance of the schedule. So we do have some electives as well that will fit into your academic schedule. So I'll let some of the students talk about some of the electives they've done, but also I wanted to make sure people know you will have four classes that you'll get sort of academic credit for, and then you'll have your study hall or your free block. And out of those 4, typically, if you're a freshman, if you're a 9th grader coming in, you may have 1, maybe 2 electives per semester, but the other 2 or 3 classes will be academic. And then as you get older and as you progress through the academy, you'll have more elective course offerings for you. So there are some seniors who have 5 to 6 electives in their senior year because they've taken all of their required courses already and gotten those out of the way. So they can we have lots of high-level electives. We have lots of hands-on electives. So actually, this is a great opportunity for you all to go around and talk about some of the elective classes that you participate in. So Carrie, why don't you jump in and tell us a little bit about, I have to unmute you, a little bit about the elective courses that you've taken.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk one academic and one non-academic. So the academic one I took was called Modern East Asia class. So our teacher graduated from Columbia. He talks about all kinds of histories, major or things we don't know about, like history of modern East Asian countries such as like China, Japan, and South Korea from 1920 to 21st century. And he gives us many like history methodology talks, and also we watch like documentaries in class, and we get to write a big paper on war responsibilities. So that gives me a lot of like inspiring thoughts about actually majoring in history in college. And also another non-academic elective is modern dance class. And our teacher, she's very nice. She not only teaches us different techniques, although we are all beginners, she's very patient. And also she invites the dance companies to our schools, or she gives us tickets to actually watch those dance performances in Dartmouth or around this area. So that is really good. And we got to perform at the Black Box Theater, which is down in Morse, each semester.
That's awesome. Those are great examples. Anybody else want to talk about their elective courses? Forster, what have you taken for some electives?
At the moment, I've only taken one elective, and I'm very interested in English, so I took a journalism and media production elective. But in next year, I plan on taking a forensics elective too. And when I first got to the academy, I was really surprised by how many electives they offer and how much choice the students have. So it's a really fun thing to just be able to pick a few electives to take.
It's great. Anybody else want to jump in about a particularly favorite elective, Kayla?
So like I mentioned before, I'm really interested in the health sciences. So there's a few different options. I took anatomy and physiology. It's a tough class, but it's really interesting. The teacher is really great. He does a lot of labs, and you get to learn all about the human body. Then I also took forensics, which is really great because it combines a bunch of different classes like psychology and chemistry and anatomy, and it kind of teaches you about the scientific side of crimes, I guess. And then I'm also, I've taken the human services class, which is a really interesting program. If you're in a program like I'm in the biomedical certificate program. So I took the human services class so that I could get an internship experience. So the school worked with me to set up 2 internships during my first semester of senior year. and I got to work off campus at a physical therapy clinic and then at a birth center. So that's a really great opportunity for you to get out in the real world and kind of get some experience in a field that you're interested in.
That's great. So that's a great example of like what Kayla was just saying. She's obviously very interested in health sciences, and she had the opportunity to get real world hands-on experience in a field that she wants to go into in the future. And that's something that's, I think, pretty rare with us. There's a lot of fields that if you're interested in doing something as a job, there's going to be something most likely for you at St. Johnsbury that you can sort of dip your toes in the water at the very least. In that field. So there's another question that's come in here about conflicting sports. If you're a soccer player and a volleyball player and you're not sure if those sports conflict, I will just answer that one quickly. So we have three seasons of sports. So we have a traditional fall, winter, and spring athletic season. We actually don't offer men's volleyball. We only offer women's volleyball at the time right now. But you're only able to compete in one varsity sport per season. So if you are, let's say you're a soccer player, but you also have an interest in cross-country running, unfortunately you have to pick between those two because there's a pretty significant time commitment to that. And we want to make sure you're being able to give your all as far as your time and your energy and your efforts to whatever sport you choose. So there's opportunities to do some things on your own and exercise and stay fit and do club sports and intramurals, but you're only able to participate in one varsity or junior varsity sport per season. So that's the answer to that question. Another question we had that came in was, sorry, I'm scrolling back. Fieldhouse hours, and the question was if someone has finished all of the clubs and homework and wants to go play some basketball or something like that, what do our fieldhouse hours look like? So Ellie, you can jump in.
So one thing that I really find beneficial is, as much as there is a schedule, there is some room for you to kind of fit your own activities in. So what I like to do is, sometimes if I want to go work out in the field house or play soccer or something, I go to dinner earlier and I don't stay for the full time. But then in the time between like 6 and 7:30 before study hall starts, I like to go to the field house. So it's kind of like you find your own schedule and you find what works for you, but there's always a way to, get your exercise in if you don't feel like going at 9 to 10.
That's great. And what Ellie was just referring to is also from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. every weeknight, the field house is open exclusively for our boarding students. So you have access to that as boarding students from 9 to 10 every night. Hi, Riyadh. We have another student who just joined his sister in the box. We'll let you hop on in a minute if you want. Here's another question that just came up that says, is there an opportunity for students to participate in multiple extracurricular activities at the same time? For example, sports and a non-athletic activity, or is it limited to one extracurricular at a time? I don't know if students have experience doing multiple. If somebody wants to chime in, looks like Noah wants to answer. Go ahead.
So every sport has its own unique time commitment, some greater than others. For example, football takes like 2.5 to 3 hours of practice every day from 3:30 almost until 6:30 or 7. And obviously, if that's your schedule, you're not really going to have time for many other extracurriculars. But during basketball season, some of my practices run from like 5 to 6:30 or 7:30 to 9, in which case you do have an opportunity to go to clubs as long as you're good enough at time management to make sure you're getting your homework done. For me, that hasn't been a problem. So this basketball season, I was able to go to Clay Club a lot and also able to go see my creative writing teacher as I was working on a poetry portfolio with her. So it's definitely unique to the specific activities that you're interested in, but if you really want to do something, then you can usually make it work within your schedule.
Great. That's perfect. Anybody else have anything else to add to that? Was that Forrester? Was your hand up?
No.
Okay. So Michael, I saw your hand up.
So Noah talked about how you the time commitments and how they are, every sport is a very large commitment, but you're not necessarily forced down to that specific thing. I mean, although the school you know, would like you not to drop out of a sport like mid-season. um there are opportunities like in years to come where you can not do the sport and you can go to like theater or something like that. But like for me, my personal experience, I started coming to the academy as a, you know, a theater kid. I always did theater and music, chorus and band I was in as well. But then uh in the years to come, like a year or two after, I joined track and field and cross country. And now those are like my passions and I love those very much. But uh there always is that room to like to grow and transition. You can always, you know, explore new fields, which is what I did. There's a lot of opportunities to find what you like and find what you want to do in the future. And in the 4 years, you really have a lot of those opportunities, especially with the extracurriculars and the academics as well. But yeah, there's always room to find what you really like to do.
Awesome. That's a great personal experience that you had, Michael, coming into the school with sort of a focus on one thing and then finding a new passion once you got there. I think a lot of students do that. I think it's a cool example of how easy that is. Let's talk about traditions at St. Johnsbury Academy. So, Carolina, we're going to go to you. Let's talk about LI Weekend and explain what LI Weekend is and things like Winter Carnival and Res Fest, all the fun stuff that you get to participate in as a boarding student and as just a general student at St. J.
Okay, so fall season is huge for football, and we play Division One. So we have a rival school called Linden Institute, where my brother studied, and every year there's this LI weekend thing where it's like well, I wouldn't say it's the biggest game because the biggest game is like at the end of the championship and like the the final game. But this is kind of just like fun because the whole week has a theme for class, and then at the end of that week, there's the weekend where it's like the game between the two schools, and we usually dress up in like our colors, which is green and white, and they dress up in maroon and white. I don't know, and and we play, and then so I was a cheerleader this year, and it was very fun because like you have your people behind you and you're just like, as I was cheering like and yelling, everybody else was yelling too, so it's just like fun to see like who has the better crowd, and we usually win. Well, most of the time we win, so yeah. But so that's fun about like LI week, that you're like most of the time you're just like with your friends and just like having fun. And also it's fun because like I know some people from LI since my brother was studying there, and I have a friend named Passion that also has a lot of friends from there. So sometimes like during the middle time when it's like a halftime, we go and like say hi to them, and it's like I like interacting with them too, because then if there's some D students in there, like they can come to St. J and hang out with you, and it's just fun. And also then another tradition that we have is like the Winter Carnival, which is kind of similar, but it's more like, it's just like our school. We don't like go to LI or anything. And it's like also, again, like you have a theme. I don't know what was this year. Like, do you guys remember what was this year? I don't remember.
Decades.
What?
Decades. Each class puts a different decade.
Oh yeah, so that was fun too. So like you dress up and you have like twin days, so you find a friend to dress up in the same clothes, and then you have like a theme day. So our theme was like, I think we had like friends and something, so we did that. And
it was 2000s.
Oh, 2000s, yeah, sorry. So some people dress up in like jumpsuits and like juicy couture and stuff like that, and it was fun. And then there's like games on Friday, or like things that you can participate in. So I remember there was like a floorball, like a game.
Floor hockey is the big one, yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. I was like watching. It was really fun and like cheering. So that's fun. And then I don't know, there's more like outside activities you do with snow sculpture based on the theme that you have. and multiple other things. And then I don't know what else, like what
Res Life,
Yeah,
Res Fest.
we'll let someone else jump in too, and maybe talk a little bit about ResFest. So Ellie, we haven't heard from you in a while. Let's talk about ResFest.
Sure. So ResFest is kind of similar to Winter Carnival, but it's just with the dorm students in the dorm community. So each dorm competes against the other dorms, and there's the big competitions are like there's a dance that your dorm spends however much time they want to on it, but the more time you spend on it, the better like the whole group looks together. And then you design a t-shirt for your dorm, you make a banner, and then everybody comes together, and it's kind of like really fun to see who's the most spirited for their dorm. Like it gets really competitive, like in a really fun way. And then we have like little competitions, same with Winter Carnival, like three-legged race, things like that, wheelbarrow races across the gym. And then there's a declared winner for each category, and it's just really fun to kind of come together with your dorm and compete against the other dorms.
Yeah, so I think the thing that is sort of a focus of all of these traditions is how rich our school spirit can be, and that's something that I think a lot of us take pride in as Academy people. I was a graduate of the Academy, and all of the faculty and staff that you see on this call were all graduates of St. Johnsbury Academy, and I think something we can all agree on is school spirit is very much full at St. J, especially around LI weekend, ResFest, and Winter Carnival. Those are times that we're really able to sort of release some of the stresses of academics and things like that, and jump into more fun stuff. And like they talked about, letting our competitive side go a little bit, and just have a lot of fun. So that's sort of what we focus on with those traditions. So that's great. I'm going to scroll up to a couple other questions. So there was a question about the cheerleading team and cheering at soccer games. I'm not sure, Carolina, you can ask or you can answer this, but I'm pretty sure you guys did only football games this past year. Is that right?
Yeah. So we only do football, and like every game you go with, like if it's a home game, you have a specific walk that you do with the whole team, and you walk there. And if it's an away game, you get on a bus. It's either a school bus or a coach bus, and then you go to that place, and you also have a walk that you have to like hold your pals and like walk with the team. But the cheerleading that is like in the school is not competitive, so it's more like just like standing and yelling and like the traditional kind of cheerleading. And it's also more fun if like there's bigger crowd, which usually for home games we have it, or for like the LI weekend there's always like a big crowd that helps you cheer and everything. And yeah, other than that, like practices take place every day of the week except for Sunday. But on Saturday, instead of like practicing, there's little kids that come in and you teach them the cheers, so it's more like a fun practice. Yeah,
that's great. And also the cheerleaders participate in what's called pep chapels. Those are before our big weekend events. So usually it's before a home football game, but also we'll do pep chapels for other sports and their big games. And those are times when the pep band is in the gym and the entire school community joins in the gym. And there's just a lot of lots of school spirit, lots of cheering, lots of singing, lots of dancing. And it's a way to get excited and energetic for a weekend of competition. So that's something that is also, that cheerleaders also do. I'm scrolling up here to check a couple other questions. Forster, let's hear from you a little bit about our dress code. What is it? Just describe the dress code first as best as you can, and I will correct you if you have anything mistaken, but I think you probably have it covered. And then talk about what it means to you to dress up in a shirt and tie every day.
For the boys' dress code, at least, mostly we wear dress pants that go down to your ankle, and then a button-down shirt with a tie. And you're allowed to wear pullovers or something like this over, just as long as you're still wearing the tie. And I think that's something that scares a lot of new students away. But personally, I really enjoy it. It kind of makes us feel more professional. and it's still pretty, the clothes are still comfortable, so it's really nice. And it's not, it takes a little more time out of your day, but overall you look better and you just feel better.
Great. Carrie, can you talk about the girls' dress code, the female dress code?
Yeah, so we have to like wear dress code, like shirt on top, like blouse, or it has to be with a color. And then we have like dress code appropriate bottoms, like khaki pants, but we cannot wear jeans. And then sometimes on Fridays we can wear like gears, like it's a gear day, and we wear like gears, like something with the STJA, like a thing on top, but a dress code appropriate bottom. So yeah, that's pretty much the girls' dress code.
Perfect. That's great. I'm gonna scroll through here to see if there's anything we haven't touched on yet. Looks like there's, so someone asked if there's a different dress code for early fall and late spring as it's warmer. I'll jump in here. The dress code is the same all year. There's no seasonal dress code. Luckily, the majority of our buildings are very cool. And you can always feel free to wear like a short sleeve dress shirt or something made of lighter material if you're concerned with sort of heat and things like that. But as of right now, there's no seasonal dress code. I think Carrie mentioned there's sometimes dress down days, so we call those variety days, and you pay $1 to dress down, and that $1 typically goes to a good charitable cause of some sort. That's usually a school-driven example, a school-driven charity or something like that. Let's talk really quickly before we're all done here about academics and academic sort of like leveling and things like that, and we can talk about the differences between different levels of classes. So I'll start by just letting people know that we have, for the most part, 3 levels of courses academically at St. Johnsbury. We have basic, standard, and accelerated. And then we also offer around 30 advanced placement courses as well, which are more advanced. And those are classes that you can potentially get college credit for. So we have, like I said, those 3 levels, and you're not stuck with one level. So if you're someone who's interested and really strong in math or science, you can always take those at an accelerated level or an AP level, advanced placement. And then maybe you're not as strong in writing or history, you can take that at maybe a standard level. And all levels you're able to go on to college and university from those levels. So it's just a matter of learning content at your own pace. So maybe if Kayla, do you want to jump in and talk about academic leveling and differences and things like that?
Sure. So when I started the academy, my schedule had, a bunch of different levels. I was in standard and accelerated classes, and pretty quickly your teachers will, and yourself will recognize that either it's a little bit more difficult or you're excelling. So for my science classes, I was doing really, really well in my standard class, and my teachers had a discussion with me asking me if they thought I would be comfortable moving up to an accelerated level. And once I moved up to that level, I realized I was more comfortable there. You're going to be challenged. They want to make sure that you're going to be challenged. So whatever level you're at, it's going to be a little bit of work, but it's a lot more rewarding and beneficial if you're in a class that's more challenging, because putting in that extra work, it feels good. And you're never going to be in a class that a teacher doesn't offer you all the support that you need. So if you're in a standard class and you're having a little bit of trouble, a teacher will always reach out to you, or you can reach out to your teacher. If you want to move up, or you want to get some extra credit, or you want to work a little bit harder, they're always going to be there to support you. And that makes the transition really easy if you're moving between levels in a class.
That's great. And just to talk a little bit more about that process, there's a department head for every academic department, and those are the people that have to approve your level change. So if you're someone who, like Kayla said, goes into maybe like a standard math class and gets there and realizes it's really, really way too easy for you, you would talk to your teacher, as Kayla said, and then the teacher would talk to the department head, and they would decide together that it's time for you to move up. And they may recommend that before you even realize that it's too easy for you. If they notice that it's too easy, then they might do that as well. And the same the other way. Oh yeah, Ellie, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that it's also like whatever you excel in, like you can take a standard level science class, but an advanced placement English. So it's kind of just wherever you're comfortable in and whatever fields you do better in, you can customize it to your own like learning standards.
Right. We haven't really talked, and we're running out of time, so we won't go too far into it, but we haven't really talked about our guidance office. So every student who starts at St. Johnsbury Academy will have a guidance counselor who works mostly with them on their post-secondary plan. So university scheduling, university planning, and applications and colleges and things like that. So everyone will have the chance to work with someone one-on-one. And those are the same people that are scheduling your classes when you're at St. Johnsbury. So they know you really well. I think that pretty much wraps up all the questions that we had asked here. I'm sure people have other things that haven't come up. If you do, you've been in touch with someone from our admissions office, most likely, whether it's Mrs. Biggie, Mrs. Cobb, Mrs. Katie, Mr. Baker, Mr. Hughes, who joined us. I see him on the call. You can wave, Mr. Hughes, so everyone can see you. Sorry that you're muted. So there's Mr. Hughes as well. So there's lots of people that have worked with a lot of you. And if you have any other questions or questions that you thought of that came from this call, feel free to shoot us an email or email admissions, which is just the general email that goes to all of us. So it's admissions@stjacademy.org. So I'm going to quickly unmute everybody and say goodbyes here to all of you, but mostly I wanted to thank our student leaders. So thank you to Noah and Forster, Carrie, Kayla, Ellie, Michael, and Carolina. Thank you also to Kazra and Jakob for joining us and giving your expertise and your experience on the fly at St. Johnsbury. It's great to see you both. And Riyadh popped his head in. He was a student as well. I don't know if he's still there or not, but Riyadh is a current student with us, and we're excited to have his sister come in as well. So we had a photo that was taken, a screenshot of this call. If for some reason you don't want your photo on a screenshot that maybe you shared on our social media pages, we'll give you a chance right now to turn off your camera, and we'll take another one. We want to see all of you, though. We're very proud of the people who are on this call, and we want you all to be part of it. So we'll take another one here in a minute if we want. And if people who have their cameras off can turn them on, thank you. There's one. There's two other cameras that are off, and if you want to turn those on for the screenshot, that would be fantastic. If you don't see them turned on in the next 5 to 10 seconds, I'll just take it and go from there. But in closing, I just wanted to say thank you all for your time this morning. It was great to see you all. We hope that it was helpful, and we hope that you learned some things about being a boarder at St. J. And we're excited to see those of you who we will see in the fall, and it was good to see old friends again. And now it looks like everyone has centered themselves and are smiling really, really nicely for this photo. So we'll have Mrs. Cobb take a screenshot of the call right now while everyone's in perfect position. Done deal?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. If Mrs. Cobb, Mrs. Biggie, and Mrs. Katie want to stay on, and Mr. Hughes want to stay on afterwards, and the rest of you, it was great to see you. We'll see you soon, and make sure to reach out to us if you have any questions.
I just want to say hi to Tobias. Hi, Tobias. See you later.
Thank you all so much. The meeting is now over, and we'll talk to you all very soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.